Back with another episode of Local Roots. Hi, I'm Todd Studer. Coming up very shortly, I had an opportunity to sit down in Minden with the mayor of Minden, Kevin Zimmerman, and talked about how things are going there, how the process is with rebuilding. Also had a chance to talk a little bit more about Western Iowa Development Association. So that conversation coming up very, very shortly. Big thank you to everyone who has been a part of this so far. And again, a request that if you have stories that you think could benefit here on the Local Roots Show, I would love to be able to talk to you about that. Just send me an email, toddstuder@gmail.com. That's the simplest way to get a hold of me. And I would sit down and tell you how this whole process works. And it's kind of exciting, and I'm, and I'm a big fan of technology. It wasn't that many years ago that there really wasn't an option to do this, and now we are delivering a show completely 100% web-based. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was that I saw Mike Rowe, you know him, Dirty Jobs guy. He did a show that was released only on Facebook. And it did a couple of seasons of it, and it was great, and really enjoyed that. And that was the first time that I ever thought that, you know what, maybe we can do something just completely web-based that is sort of a podcast. It's sort of a podcast, but it's also kind of a hybrid into a traditional show. So, and I've gotten a ton of great comments about it already, and I'm excited to be able to watch this show grow. Also, if you have a business and would like to learn more about what it means to sponsor Local Roots, let's sit down and have a conversation. Again, same email, toddstuder@gmail.com, and we can walk through all of the benefits and what comes with sponsoring here on this show. All right, let's get up to Minden and visit with Kevin Zimmerman. Wanted to come up here to Minden today on a very wet, as people know that I record this ahead of time. So
very wet.
Yeah, very wet. And we wanted to talk to you about the updates in Minden, about everything that's been going on. And I know that for a lot of us that don't live in Minden or don't have connections to Minden, 3-4 days after the tornadoes hit, we were on to something else. But that's not what life is for you, and it hasn't been for the last year.
Yep. It's been long. Yep.
So how does this process work to make sure that you're staying in the front of folks' minds? Because it takes a lot to rebuild a town.
The biggest thing is we're trying, it's a hurry up and wait mentality. They said the day after the storm, it's no longer a race, it's a marathon. So, and it took me a while to figure out what they meant, but you fill out, you come up with the plan that you want to do, and then you start filling out all this paperwork for like a grants and stuff. If a guy could afford it and you go ahead and do it, then you can't get any help with it, and we don't have enough money to do that. So,
well, I don't know many small towns in Iowa that would.
Yeah, or even big towns. They all have the problem. So the biggest thing what we're working on is we're working on a housing project right now that's a duplex project. It took us probably a month to throw together the plan. We knew what we wanted to do, but you still got to throw together the plan of how we're going to do it. And then we went out for grants. We ended up getting awarded $1.2 million for 3 duplex projects. And what that grant will do for us is we're going to be able to sell those 6 properties. There'll be 6 separate properties. Be able to sell them, I believe, for $175, and they're $300,000 a piece. Those people will live there for 5 years, and then they don't have to pay that grant back. So they're going to save $125,000 if they live there for 5 years, at least 5 years.
Is there a priority being given to the residents that were here before, or how does that process work?
I am not sure how that whole process, because really the city, we helped them find the ground. We helped them. We was able to get a grant to pay for the land. We originally bought them, and then we got reimbursed. So the land got paid for. with a grant. This housing project is getting paid for with a grant, and it totals $600,000 per duplex or $300,000 per side. And they'll have a garage basement. There'll be a nice setup. It'll be nice, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. And you see them all over the place. I mean, Council Bluffs, Omaha, every big city's got them, but Minden never. So now we're able to get them, and that's kind of how they did it too. It was through grants, and because they call them workforce housing. So they'll be nicer, like to be able to buy them, you would have to, you could only make X amount as a family of 4 or single, and you so you can't like buy it as a rental. You gotta live there. You know, it's kind of a neat program, and they'll be nice looking. They're in a great part of town. They're about a block from downtown, block and a half. So it'll be a nice setup for that part of it.
And that's just one piece of what's going on.
Yeah,
but
just one piece.
There's a huge amount of rebuilding that has been happening and still needs to be done.
Yep, a lot of houses are getting, they either got re-roof sided windows, re-drywalled inside, or just completely started over. And that's going to be ongoing. The other big thing that we need to do is we're starting to work on our parks and figure out what we're going to do to them, and then see what it's going to cost to get them back where we were. But as we're doing that, we're trying to envision walking trails, maybe some kind of pickleball courts, you know, dog park. You know, we're trying to incorporate some of that stuff in the plan, and then we'll be going out for some grants on that, maybe 50-50 match to, you know, full-blown grant. There are some grant opportunities out there because of what happened, and but it takes time. You know, you got to come up with a plan, draw it all up, and then try for it. And it's just something you can't do in a day. You know, it takes time. So,
did you come up with like a number or a percentage of the amount of structures in Minden that were damaged or demolished versus those that maybe didn't see any damage?
I think we lost 50 homes right at. And, you know, for our community of 650 homes is a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
And then we lost, I believe, 90% of our businesses.
Is that because of the downtown
Yeah.
area, and that's where all the businesses were?
Yeah, that and our building strip that got wiped out, completely leveled. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and I drove down there, and I own a couple of those buildings. And I even had to step back and figure out where were those buildings, because they were just leveled. You couldn't tell it was a building anymore. They were gone. So it took a little bit, you know, you kind of step back, you know.
How are the folks in town doing? How are they? Because here's the thing. I know on a very minor scale, I had a car accident once. It was hard for me to get behind the wheel again.
Yep.
So now, I mean, you are here in a town and you're rebuilding after a storm. We are about to enter spring, which everybody knows in Iowa, storm season.
Yep.
So how's everybody doing with all of that?
I know a few people in town that have not, I don't think they've driven by their property, and they're not rebuilding. So I don't have that problem, but, you know, my whole life I've been a general contractor, so I'm used to kind of destruction, and then you fix.
Right, and plus you can take a look at a blank slate of property, even that's heavily damaged, and see the finished product, because you've done it so many times.
Yeah.
But for somebody who this is their first experience with it, they can't see it.
Yeah, yeah, and all you can do is help, try to help, and it's hard. I'm in that position, but I'm not in that position because I'm able to see past it. You know, so. I've been trying to help them, but some of them just aren't going to rebuild. You know, they're just not. And a few of them have left town, and said they haven't been back. So that hurts, you know. And some of them have been here a long time, you know, like 20 years, you know, 20, 30 years. So that's tough. But we've gotten some people moved in town already that have moved back, and they're thriving and doing their thing, and their houses are done or in the process about done. There's some other houses that are still being completed, and they're not moved in yet. The drywall ain't done yet, you know. So they're getting a little frustrated, I'm sure. But it's coming along. I mean, I was pretty lucky on mine. I mean, my house got water damage and the roof flipped over, but we got it tarped right away, and I was able to get somebody on mine right away, you know, with the company I got. So, I mean, I'm basically back in my house, but it's I don't know. Everybody's got their own deal, you know.
Talk about the community support that you've received from other folks in the area and around the county and places like that, because the story that I heard was that help was getting here so fast that you weren't ready for it, and had to tell some folks, hey, we're not ready yet. We appreciate it,
Yep.
but give us some time to get our feet under us.
Yep. We locked the town down because that first day or two, we had so many people in town that we couldn't handle the trailers. I mean, there was so many trucks and trailers in town that if they parked them, they blocked the road, and there was so many bottlenecks that first day or two, and it was impossible. So we said, if we don't know you, you're not coming in, you know. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where the sheriff was calling me, do you know Bob? Do you know? and yeah, let him through, or don't let him through, you know. And they would get mad at the road, but we just didn't have room for the trailers. I had one instant that we had like 3 semis backed up. The power guys are trying to get the power poles back up. And this one guy shows up with this car, and he parked like 5 foot into the street. He didn't park against the curb, he parked. Mm-hmm. So the semis were just squeaking by this car. And I asked, this is kind of a funny story, I asked who this guy's car was, and I ran around that whole area trying to find out who this car was so we could get it moved. And I called a dozer. We were going to shove that car off the road. It was perfectly good car,
right,
but he couldn't park. He didn't park where he should have parked. And the dozer was at the car and going to shove it over when the guy showed up. So I don't know who got lucky there, probably me, but that car was going to get shoved off the side of the road, and he finally did move. But it was just a cluster. I mean, it was so dangerous because we had all these side dumps with trees, and the trees hang over the sides, and they're trying to drive down these streets, and there was cars parked on both sides, and 100 trucks and trailers driving around. It was impossible.
Well, and I'm imagining that you had to put together a monster organizational plan very, very quickly. And as you said, you're the mayor of a town of 650 people. And this is probably not right on the front of your mind that this is something you have to be ready for. You're going to, you know, obviously we live in Iowa, tornadoes can happen.
Yep.
But this level of devastation, we typically don't see.
Yep.
So just that quick, we got to get all of this together, and it needs to work. And it's a learning process as you go. And
Yep.
you have to you kind of grab that tiger by the tail and hope it works out.
Yep, yep. It was kind of fun. I say that sarcastically.
Sure.
But, you know, that's part of my, you know, I run a general contracting company, so things happen every day. I mean, you could build one building, and then the next building is the same building, and a totally different disaster would happen. And you just got to go with it, because the building's still got to be done on time. It's still got to be, you know, the right color. and it's got to have a good foundation, you know. So, and just like this, you know, things got to happen. And when the power company all showed up, and we lost, and this is something different than I heard about any other storm. We lost water, sewer, gas, and electric, all in the same storm. Usually you lose maybe one or two, but not all four. So we lost everything, and it was, luckily it was fairly warm. You know, you lose electricity and you might be able to have a little heat, but without gas, if it was wintertime, it would have been rough, you know. So there was just a lot of things, and it took time to get all that back up. You know, we lost, was it 35 telephone poles, you know, in town, and they were the main poles. These weren't just a light pole. These were like the main wires to town. So, yeah, it was kind of rough.
Yeah, it's just all of a sudden.
And it's all on the highway, and that's where all the cars and these trailers wanted to go. And yeah, so yeah, it was fun.
As I said, it's just all of a sudden, an entire town is just kind of sent right back to the Stone Ages, and you had to prioritize. It's like doing triage and say, okay, what is the most important thing? And I'm going to imagine that, okay, we got to get water going, but I'm sure there was pipes that were broken, and was the water ready to be turned back on?
Yep.
And you just kind of have to work backwards from that. So I'm sure that general contractor's experience and the wealth of knowledge that you brought to it had to have been invaluable.
Yep. And it helped too. We got two really capable city guys that right away shut the water tower down, and so we didn't drain our tank. And you know, we got I think it's 150,000 gallon tank, standpipe. So it was probably 3/4 full when they shut it off. So that gave us water when we did start turning things back on. That gave us water to be able to live off of till we got power back up, because we couldn't pump water, we couldn't do a lot of things. So I think they were able to turn that off. They did all that without, I didn't have to tell them that. I mean, they've been around here a few years, so that helped. And then they're also part of the fire department, so they kind of know how that stuff goes too. So it really helps on that when you got capable people that are working for you too, you know.
Do you see Minden ever returning to the Minden that you knew? Is it just gonna look completely different, or how is this gonna be when it's all said and done?
Hopefully we'll have a few more trees. Right now we don't have very many trees. Right. I think it'll come back better, stronger. I mean, there's just driving around, the stuff that's getting built is built pretty nice. I mean, we had a pretty good community before the storm. I call it pre-storm, after storm. Before the storm, we had a fairly new water tower, new lagoons, newer lagoons. We had, the whole town was looped in bigger PVC pipe. So, I mean, we had a great infrastructure. A lot of our streets, we were basically down to one street that needed replaced, and that was on the docket a month from the date of the storm to get started. We canceled it. We didn't cancel it. We tabled it for now, because that's going to take about $1 million to do the street, and we don't have the $1 million no more to do it. But that was the last street that really needed fixed. Everything else in town had been fixed. We had a great community hall. Downtown was good. We just spent, I think it was $1.5 million on our downtown project. We put all new lights up and new sidewalks and curbs and gutters and handrails, made that look really nice. Was that a couple years before, maybe 4 years before? We were working on a housing project that we were going to hopefully start here in another year. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going after storm. Now we got to get our community club back. We got to get our parks back up and running. They didn't need a whole lot before. Now they need everything. We got our triangle straightened out again. The railing, we had to rebuild all of our railing again. We put all brand new lighting again in our downtown. So our downtown, as far as lights and stuff, is good. The bowling alley got rebuilt, got rebuilt again. 6 months it took them to open up, back up again. They're back open. They make awesome food. And then we lost our meat market. They're trying to build back. Hopefully we can get them back here in a few years. We used to have a doctor and we used to have a pharmacy. They both had to close because their buildings got destroyed. So we are actively trying to get that back. There's just a lot of things that we were used to and we don't have right now. So we're trying to get that back. We got a grocery store. They luckily only got a little bit of damage, and they were able to stay open.
Yeah, community this size, to have some of those things, like a pharmacy and a grocery store, that's huge.
Yep.
If folks do not have to drive 30 minutes into Council Bluffs or across the river into Omaha, and they can get their groceries right in that town, that's a monster thing as far as health of a town.
Yep. Our dentist, we had a dentist in town until about 2-3 years ago. He retired, and his wife passed away, but he decided to retire, and we always thought it'd be nice to get another dentist back. And that was really the only thing we were missing. We had a doctor, a dentist, a pharmacy, grocery store, a restaurant, a bar, and a feed store, meat market. I mean, we had a lot of stuff in town. A hairdresser, all that. A lot of that got destroyed. We got some of it back now, but we're still working on bringing the rest of it back. But the other stuff that ain't there that we're talking about, that buildings are gone. I mean, they got knocked down. So they're going to have to, totally rebuild. The other ones were kind of repairs, but the other ones that we don't have, like the meat market and the doctor and the pharmacy, they got destroyed.
Well, it's encouraging to me to watch the town pull together and rebuild. It hasn't always happened. There have been towns that have gotten hit, that was the end of the town.
Yep.
There was one that was up. It wasn't a really big community, but it actually happened when I was very, very young. A community of Ware up in northwest Iowa. It got hit and it was done. That was it. They never came back.
Yeah.
Other places have, but Bradgate's up in that same area when they got hit back about 15 years ago. That's really close to where I grew up. So when I drive now into Minden, it reminds me of that. When you start to see brand new places next to a 100-year-old house.
Really?
And that's, you kind of get it's like you got both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
of what's going on. Because there were some places in town that survived, and mostly on the north end, right?
Yep. Yeah, on the north end of town, mostly north and west was good, but there's mostly homes there. There's not,
Right.
C&A Scales, they decided to rebuild, and their building is up now, and they're putting their cranes in and stuff for that. It's a manufacturing scale business, and they're saying they're going to hire some people, and they've got they were able to get a grant for some of it, and the rest of it they had to pay out of pocket, but it's a nice looking building and it's ready to go. There's a house builder that wasn't here before, and he rented a building in town, and now he's a new building that just got built. He rented a stall out of it. We're working on a couple of a vegetable company that's coming in, and they supply vegetables like restaurants and grocery stores and that kind of stuff, so they could go and get fresh vegetables every day. There's a heating and air guy here in town that's an electrician, heating and air guy, and his building is still getting worked on. I seen them there this morning. They're still putting roofing on, so it's getting closer. on the buildings. What else? Tim Service, it's our local mechanic. He got completely wiped out. His building's up, and I think they got the lifts in, and they're working on that. Like to say, the grocery store's good. Bowling alley, there was a catering outfit, she got her roof on. The post office. So, yeah, we're gaining some businesses back and are going. It took us, we didn't have power for like 5 days. And then 2 weeks later, we had another tornado go over and took out some more poles. So we were out another 3 days. So, yeah, it was a rough April and beginning of May. So,
well, before we wrap things up, and you talked about a lot of the small businesses that are here. This show works closely with Western Iowa Development Association,
Yep.
which you're kind of familiar with since you're president of the board. And I wanted to talk to you just briefly about
Okay.
WIDA and about what having this organization means for these small communities around the county.
yeah, we don't really have, without WIDA, we don't really have any group looking out for us or helping us on that end. Stacy Kinney is our director, and she's awesome. She meets with the businesses. Of course, sometimes they got to call her. She can't contact all of them. There's just too many of them. But if you get a hold of her and work with her, it would be well worth spending some time with her. And she'll help with some advertising or brochures, or at least you're in our newsletter and all that stuff, and help you with. Sometimes it's good to have that person outside the box, and maybe you ought to try this. I didn't even think of that. And sometimes it's good just to have somebody outside looking in, and for as little time as it takes to ask. It's just so you're crazy if you don't, And she does a great job with pictures and all that stuff. Like during COVID, as crazy as it was, WIDA was the only group that helped the restaurants. We put out the phone numbers so you could get deliveries, and I don't know if you knew that, but WIDA was the only group that did that out here.
Right.
There was some groups in town doing it, but nobody out in these small communities. So we put the word out that, hey, Minden Grocery or Minden whatever's got, the bowling alley's got tenderloins today. And you can just drive up front and honk your horn, and they'll be laying, they'll bring them out to you. And we were the only ones doing that I know of. And it made a lot of restaurants and groups survive during that time. And we're still doing that today, but we're helping like with menus and pictures and ribbon cuttings and all that, letting people know that, hey, you should maybe try out these small towns.
So there's the digital world that we're in now, and it's 100% digital. This show exists entirely on the internet.
Yep.
There is no what we used to, we call terrestrial radio, what I used to make my career in, or traditional television and that kind of thing. This being in this digital world now and doing everything online, it can be intimidating. And it can also be a huge asset when you know how to navigate it. And that's where Stacy comes in, and all the stuff that she's doing is really, really big, because a lot of folks, I'm still learning. I'm still learning how all of this goes, and they need some help with it. And that's one of the things that WIDA can provide and get, or at least get you in contact with somebody else that understands it. So that's why I'm grateful that we're able to put this show together and be able to highlight what's going on, whether it's in Minden or whether it's out in Oakland or it's in Trainer or Underwood or Neola or any of the communities that are around the county, that, there's a common theme and a commonality that goes through all of it. And I talked about this just recently, that, it's almost like, we're all just kind of a family out here, and we're supporting each other, because what affects one town's going to affect the other.
That's right.
So that's why I'm, as I said, grateful for the opportunity
You
to
bet.
come up here, talk to you, get an update. I'm hoping that at some point, when you see that we're close enough to the finish line in recovery, we're going to have a big street party. That sounds like you'll bring in some barbecue trucks and
Yeah,
maybe
just-
a band and just.
Might want to do it today. It's raining outside.
No. As we're recording this, it's a little damp outside.
Yeah,
But anyway, Kevin Zimmerman, thank you, sir. Grateful,
bet. Thank
grateful
you.
for your time, and
Yeah.
looking forward to talking again.
You bet. Thank you.
It's good to see all the rebuilding happening in Minden, and also the advancement and new developments that are happening at the same time. So it's encouraging, and I know that folks there have been through an awful lot, and it's great to see them rebuilding and the entire area pulled together with this. All right, we're going to wrap things up for today. Thank you very much for being a part of things. Thank you to Western Iowa Development Association for being a huge supporter and kind of partnering with them in order to get you this show. So thankful for them as well. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this Wednesday. My name's Todd Studer. Stay warm. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.